Tim, he's KJ. This is the Kansas City Royals season preview. Day 7, you have the Pirates and the Marlins are the next two teams up. And the last two teams we did are the Cubs and the Padres. So go check out all those videos and all the other ones we've done so far. And if you haven't seen your team previewed so far, it is coming up sometime over the next 23 days in this schedule. So we're going to go through what the Royals did. Last season they were 71 and 91. They finished in 4th place, 24 games out of the Tigers, who have improved by adding Prince Fielder this offseason. And really, the All-Star game coming there might end up being the biggest thing for the Royals in 2012. But we're going to go ahead and preview them regardless. First off, what they did in the offseason, they made a trade. They traded Melky Cabrera, who had a nice one season there, to the Giants, and they acquired Jonathan Sanchez. And they also signed Jonathan Broxton, brought back Unieski Betancourt, and for the most part, that was it. There might be a few other minor signings, but that was pretty much it for the major things. Let's go through the lineup now. At catcher, you have Salvador Perez, and Perez hit .331 last year with 3 home runs and 21 RBIs in 39 games. They've had some trouble bringing prospects up and getting them to pan out. I mean, guys like Alex Gordon, who were supposed to be superstars and just end up being like good players. Salvador Perez looks pretty solid, and hopefully he can put together a full season this year for the Royals. He's only 22, so.
Perez looks like a great prospect for Kansas City. They needed somebody like him to come up and be a big player on this team. He's only had 150 at bats, only around 40 games, and but he's hitting .331. He's had some RBIs, and he seems pretty promising. So hopefully he can bring an impact to his team and be the long-term catcher for this team, which is something they need, is more long-term players.
He is gonna strike out a decent amount, but you'll take that if the guy hits .330 for you. At backing him up, you have Brian Pena, who last season in 72 games with the Royals hit .248 with 3 home runs and 24 RBIs. He's not the worst backup catcher ever, but for the most part, you're gonna see Perez getting most of the duties behind the plate this year. At first base, then you have Eric Hosmer, who hit .293 last year with 19 home runs and 78 RBIs in 128 games, and he is also very young as well, another one of their bigger prospects. And he looks like a player that in a few years could be a 25 or 30 home run guy.
Yeah, he seems pretty promising prospect, and he had a decent average last year. It wasn't too bad, and he had a good amount of RBIs. He helped out the team last year, even though they weren't such a great team, but hopefully he can contribute with Perez with some power hitting and get some home runs and RBIs this season.
And, I mean, Hosmer should be the long-term first baseman there for quite a while. The guy who was the previous first baseman, and they moved him to the DH now, is Billy Butler, who last season hit .291 with 19 home runs and 95 RBIs. The season before that, he hit .318, but he had less home runs and less RBIs, so I think you'll take him hitting .291. Overall, they have some good young hitters that can hit for average, though, and Billy Butler's one of the guys who's been there for a decent amount of time now, but he's still only going to be like 27 when the season, or 26, I should say, when the season begins.
Yeah, Butler will be a good backup and also DH. He'll be able to bring in some home runs, some RBIs, and contribute to the offense. And that's something that they need when they play other AL teams and have to go away and contribute with another bat.
He's not going to be like a 30 home run guy. I'd compare him to Derek Lee with a little less power when Derek Lee was with like the Marlins and the Cubs in his prime. At second base, then, you have Johnny Giovatella, who last season hit .247 in 178 at bats, 46 total games, hit 2 home runs and 21 RBIs. Another very young guy, only 23 years old, and I would expect that, or 24 years old. I would expect that he will continue to be the second baseman there for quite a while because he looks promising so far. I think that he's going to have to get the average up, obviously, and I'm not sure exactly what type of fielder he is.
Yeah, I'm not sure about what kind of fielder he is, too, but with his average, he needs to be picked up a little bit. But these guys are so young. If they can create some chemistry and start putting some things together, they'll be a good team, and he'll be a good second baseman for this team for the long running.
And backing him up, you have one of the more veteran guys, even though he's only been in the league for 4 seasons, spent 2 of them with the White Sox and 2 of them with the Royals. He is about 28 years old, so He's had a decent career as a backup. Chris Getz, we're talking about. He'll hit around 260 for you. He's not much of a power threat, but he'll get on base a decent amount. He's a nice backup. He's a nice utility guy. Nothing more, really. At shortstop, then, you have Alcides Escobar, who was the big piece that they acquired from the Brewers in the Zach Greinke trade last year. In his first full season there, he hit 254 with 4 home runs and 46 RBIs. So I think he's going to be a good shortstop, but hitting-wise, he's not a great hitter.
He's going to give you some RBIs here and there, and he's going to steal a lot of bags for you. But he's going to strike out, and he doesn't have a great average. So I don't know. He's going to contribute to. He's a pretty good fielder, so he's going to contribute there. But he needs to start picking up his bat, and that'll help the team in the long run for this season.
Yeah, and he hit 304 in 2009, albeit in 38 games, but he looked pretty promising there, which is one of the things that made him so enticing for them to get when they traded away Zach Greinke. So he's going to have to improve hitting-wise, but overall he looks like he's going to be a pretty solid player. Backing him up, they brought back Yuniesky Betancourt, who was traded. Basically, he was a starting shortstop for the Brewers for a decent amount of time last year before they made some trades and switched that around. But he comes back to the Royals, where 2 seasons ago he hit 259 with 16 home runs and 78 RBIs. And honestly, at the plate, I think he is a much better option than Escobar. In the field, maybe not, and he's not going to steal nearly as many bases. But he has way more power. He can hit 15 home runs and about 75 RBIs, and I think that he may end up getting a starting position or at least more looks at shortstop.
Yeah, he probably will get more looks at shortstop, and if he's going to give you a better bat than Alcides, then you're going to play him because they're both okay fielders. I mean, he's not the better fielder, but he's going to give you a better bat and provide more offenses, and that's something that they need with the pitching staff that they have.
Yeah, and he is 30 years old, so Escobar's obviously much younger, but Yuniesky Betancourt's been with the Royals for a while now, and he's had a nice career. So we'll have to see. He also spent a lot of his career with the Seattle Mariners. He's been in the league since 2005. Over at third base, then, you have Mike Moustakas, who is another very young prospect for this team. In 89 games last year, he had 263 with 5 home runs. I think that this is a guy who will steal a decent amount of bags, and he has some decent power, but he's only seen limited time in the MLB, so there's not a ton to go off of.
Yeah, he'll give you some good RBIs. He's going to strike out a lot. He's going to give you some strikeouts, but he hits an okay average, and he needs to pick that up a little bit, but he's going to give you a decent bat and somebody that can hopefully blossom into a better player.
Yeah, long term, he probably is their long-term third baseman because the guy and Chris Getz will back him up over at third base. Alex Gordon was their original third baseman a few years ago. He was like a phenom prospect. He's ended up having a pretty nice career, but just not quite what they expected. But very good player still. 303 average last year. He really had a breakout season with 23 home runs and 87 RBIs. And looking down what he's done throughout the rest of his career, it is not very impressive. But then if you go look at what he did last year, he's only like 26 years old, 27. So I think that he is right in the middle, or he's about to reach his prime of his career. And I think Alex Gordon is going to be a very important player there for the next 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, I agree. I think Gordon's going to be a very important player. And the spark that he lit last year hopefully can create it into a wildfire this year, because that's what they're going to need. They're going to need some a nice player with a nice average, hitting some runs in, and they're going to need him to be just as big as he was last year, and hopefully these younger guys can feed off of that and also contribute.
Mitch Mayer's going to be the backup at all 3 outfield positions, so let's just cover him now. He's not a great hitter. He's been up and down throughout his career. Early in his career, he looked like he'd be closer to a 250 hitter. He came up one year to 265, and then last year hit 232. He's going to hit you 3-4 home runs on the season, and in a full season, full season for a utility guy, if you get him 100 games, he could probably hit you about 35 RBIs. He's a decent 4th outfielder, but you could probably do better.
Yeah, he's not going to do anything special for you, but he's also not going to go up to the plate and strike out 100% of the time. He's going to give you some runs, and he's going to give some of your outfielders some rest days, but he's not going to be able to do enough to be a starter at any point in the season.
Yeah, and he's pretty fast once you get him on the base path, so he is the type of guy you could see coming into games late in the field and as a pinch runner potentially. He is 30 years old as well. In center field, you have Lorenzo Cain, 26 years old, young player. Actually, he's not 26 yet, but in like the second week of the season, he'll be 26. In his rookie season with Milwaukee, another piece that got traded over was Zach Greinke. In 43 games, he hit 306 with 1 home run and 13 RBIs. And last year, just really didn't get a ton of time. 6 games, 273 average, 0 home runs and an RBI. But what can you really tell from 6 games? I think that if he can play as much as he did, or he's obviously going to play a lot more than he did in 2010, I could see this guy hitting in like 288, 289 area, and I'm not really sure on the power yet.
You can't really base off anything that he did last year, like you said, Tim. He only had 6 games, but from what he did in Milwaukee, he looks like he's a pretty promising outfielder. He's going to give you a good average. He's going to hit in some runs, and he's a piece of the puzzle that you really need, especially with this young team. He's gonna offer a lot, I think, in the long run.
And then in right field, you have Jeff Francoeur, a guy whose career has been up and down. He looked like one of the guys that was going to help turn the Braves around back in the day. And ultimately ended up falling out of favor there. He had a 29 home run season, then every year after that it went down to like 19, 11, 15. Spent a few bad seasons with the Mets, really, to say the least. He was an alright player, but he was probably a 4th outfielder type by 2010 where he had 249 with 13 home runs. He did have some trouble staying healthy that year. And then he went to the Royals. I remember reading an article that said this is really it for him. He's either going to become a starting outfielder in the league, or he's ultimately going to be destined to float around with a few teams, and then his career will be over. He got the job done last year, 285 average, 20 home runs, 87 RBIs, and he stole 22 bases, although he got caught stealing 10 times, which isn't a great success rate. He joined the 2020 club last year, which is a modest accomplishment.
Yeah, he had a pretty good season last year, but the only thing I don't like seeing is that he had a good season last year, but for the 4 or 5 years in between since he was with Atlanta, he hasn't done that well. I mean, he's given you a decent average, but he's been on the decline from what statistics show, but hopefully he can make a rebound season like he did last year, have a good season, give you some RBIs, some homers, and add to the offense.
Then we look over at the pitching staff where you have Luke Hochevar, a guy who was supposed to be a beast. I think he was a #1 pick. And needless to say, things have not quite worked out for him. Last year, 11-11 with a 4.68 ERA. Really just did not get the job done, and he's been really a huge disappointment for this team over the course of his career.
Yeah, going 500 for your ace is not going to get the job done.
Well, and even having almost 5 ERA is even worse, though.
Yeah, it's not going to get the job done. Having that high of an ERA, not getting any wins. I mean, part of the problem was his offense, but hopefully things can go past from that and he can have some confidence with a decent offense that he's going to have this year. But still, this guy being your ace, I don't know. I don't see how he's going to do. It's really going to be a coin flip of a season for him, but hopefully he can turn things around from what he did last year and have an okay season.
He gave him a decent amount of innings last year, almost 200 innings, which is a really big stat for a starter, but when you have a 4.68 ERA, that doesn't tend to mean much. You have Bruce Chen at the second spot, a veteran guy. He's been in the league since 1998. Last year went 12-8 with a 3.77 ERA. That's pretty decent. That's one of the better seasons he's had in his career. He's been with Baltimore, Philly, Atlanta, Texas, all over the place throughout the course of his career. He's probably a number 4 or 5 starter on most solid rotations, but this is not a great rotation. Signed a 2-year, $9 million deal in the offseason, so we'll have to see what they get out of Bruce Chen.
Yeah, hopefully they can get out of him some of what they got out of him last year, because you really can't hope for much more out of a guy who's on the decline of his career and hasn't had a really great career in itself. So hopefully he can contribute to the pitching, and maybe he can get a couple extra wins for him this season.
Jonathan Sanchez then will be at the number 3 spot. He was acquired in the offseason, I should say. He was acquired from the San Francisco Giants for Melky Cabrera. Really, he has not been a great pitcher throughout the course of his career. He's been extremely streaky. He's had great success against certain teams, and then other teams he hasn't. He gets flustered pretty easily on the mound. But you look back at 2010, the year the Giants won the World Series, he threw 193 innings, 13-9 with a 3.07 ERA. Some of that is a product of pitching in the Giants' huge stadium, but he had a really nice season that year, and I think he will be one of the guys that has a rebound season after having a 4-7 record with a 4.26 ERA last year, missing a lot of starts because of injuries. I would expect him to win about 10 or 11 games and have an ERA around 3.50.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a great season this year. He had a good season in 2010, but last year was a real down season. He didn't do much. Like you said, he was injured, had posted a 4.20 ERA and only 4 wins. But I think this year he's going to have around 11, 12 wins, and he's going to be the best pitcher on this team. I think he's going to turn everything around and look similar to what he did in 2010 when they won the World Series.
He's 29, so he's still pretty young. So if it works out, this is a nice trade for both parts because I think the Giants actually got a pretty good piece that fits what their offense is trying to do over in San Francisco. At the number 4 spot, then, you have Felipe Paulino, 29 years old, and last season went 4-10 with a 4.46 ERA. There's not a whole lot else to say. He struggled with the Astros earlier in his career, and really has just not been a good pitcher. There's not a whole lot else to say. Danny Duffy will be at the number 5 spot. Looks pretty weird by this picture I'm looking at, but went 4-8 with a 5.64 ERA. He's very young, so there's not a ton to tell. A lot of guys come up in the first season and a half isn't very good. If he can figure things out, he might end up being a decent pitcher. And then Luis Mendoza is another guy that they have an option with. Was a top prospect in the Red Sox organization with the Rangers, and things have just not really worked out. But last year, in some relief appearances, in 2 games last year, he was 2-0 with a 1.23 ERA, so he got some late inning work and did a decent job. He could push for a starting spot this season. We'll have to see, but for the Royals, a small market team, this might be one of those guys that you just get lucky on, and all of a sudden at age like 28 or 29, he's a late bloomer and things kind of work out for him.
Yeah, that's what you hope for, but this guy doesn't show much promise. He doesn't really seem like he's going to do anything for you. Only 2 games last year. He hasn't pitched in a while or done anything good in a while, so I don't see him pushing for a starting spot. I don't see him making it.
Now, we'll go through a few of the key players in their bullpen. Vin Mazzaro was supposed to be a starter last year. Things did not work out in that category, which ultimately led him to, and he's been a starter for a few years before that with the A's. Has not had great success throughout his career, let's just say that much, and he had trouble staying healthy last year. Jonathan Broxton, who they brought over, he's had some solid seasons in 08 and 09, the years that the Dodgers went to the NLCS, and even before that in 06 and 07, he was even better. He can be a guy that has like an ERA between 2 and 3, but the problem is last season he had a 5.68 ERA, and he's lost a few miles off his fastball. He's not a closer, but as a setup man, I think he could do a pretty decent job, and he can get you an occasional save.
Yeah, he's going to do good for you this season. He's a guy that you bring in for basically for him being around the league in a while because you have a very young team, and also he hasn't been very good in the last 2 years, but hopefully he can put in some setups for saves and also get some saves, hopefully, if he can get the job done this season.
And then their closer, Joakim Soria, he's been in the All-Star game twice, 2008 2010. He's been voted the DHL Delivery Man of the Month twice in his career, both are one in 2008, one in 2009. And he's been one of the more underrated closers over the past few seasons. 28 years old, he'll be mid-season, so he's still very young. The Royals will get a lot of opportunities to trade him. Did not have a great season last year. He's 5-5, saved 28 games, but blew 6. So, or not 6. I don't even know. He blew 7 saves, I should say. And but before that, he's been a shutdown closer. He would be good for like 40 saves in most seasons. And I think that last year was just a bump in the road because 2 seasons ago he's 1-2, but he had a 1.78 ERA and saved 43 out of 46 games. And in 2008, he saved 42 out of 45 with a 1.60 ERA. And in 2009, the year in between that, where he really didn't have as good a season, he had an ERA of 2.21 with 30 of 33 saves. So he's one of the best closers in baseball, and probably will end up getting traded either this year or next year because he is approaching free agency. And while the Royals would love to keep him long term, they can probably find someone else, and they need the prospects that they could get rather than seeing him walk through free agency.
Yeah, he's probably going to go through free agency, but before he does, he's going to contribute to this team this season. He's going to get some saves. He's going to do a good job. He didn't have a great season last year, but that's what happens when you don't have confidence from your hitting and stuff. But from '07 to 2010, he was really promising, did great, and I think he's going to do what he did in those couple of years in between. I think last year was a fluke, but he's definitely a great closer in this league.
Yeah, and I think that he can end up with a team like the Angels, who one of their obvious holes is that they don't have a closer right now. We'll have to see what happens there. But ultimately, he is a free agent after this season, so I would expect that he will be traded. We've heard some rumors before that the Yankees were interested. I mean, Rivera is a free agent at the end of this season, and maybe he decides to retire, so maybe they look at that. They do have Rafael Soriano, so we don't know. Maybe if Andrew Bailey doesn't work out for the Red Sox, he could go there. I'm not sure even if the Cardinals have gotten a closer from last year when they really didn't have a great closer. They did more whoever was hot at the time. They could be a team that gets interested. I mean, you're going to have to give up a lot for this guy, so there's going to be questions. Ultimately, record-wise, what do you think they do this year?
I feel like they're going to win 10 more games than they did last year. I think they're going to make a push for the 3 spot. I don't see them contending for playoffs or anything. They're still a really young team. They have a lot of work to do, but I do see them winning about 10 more games than they did last year and pushing for the 3 spot in this division.
You see them at 500. I mean, the White Sox are going to be a terrible team this year, honestly. The Twins, I think they'll be better. I think they'll be right around 82 wins. The Indians will be around 84. Besides the Tigers, it's a really mediocre division. I think they'll win about 78 games this year, which is an improvement and a step in the right direction, which we've seen them have a few times when they had Zach Greinke a few years ago. I think that they're going to be a team in 2 or 3 seasons if all their guys pan out and they can add some more starting pitching depth and probably end up getting a new closer that could challenge to win this division. Well, I don't know. They could challenge for one of those wild card spots in a few years, but we're going to have to see some teams fall off before that happens because it's going to be tough for teams like the Royals. I mean, the only team in the American League that really competes that isn't a huge market team is the Rays because Andrew Friedman and everyone there has done a great job. But, I mean, if you look around the American League, the Blue Jays, I think, are a better team, and they have a bright young future. Orioles are basically in the same position, except I think their lineup is probably better than the Royals. I don't know if that's long-term. Their division doesn't look like they're going to be beating the Tigers anytime soon. And then in the Western Division, the Mariners look like they're on the rise. I don't know what the hell the A's are doing. The Rangers have a great farm system. They continue to filter guys up. They'll be good for the next 5 or so seasons. And the Angels are obviously putting themselves in a position to be very successful. So it's going to be tough for anyone really new to come up in the American League. We'll have to see what happens. I'm Sammy's KJ. We'll see you guys later.